What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and I get so excited when these grading reports come out. So if you are new to this channel, if you haven't watched my first grading report, so there is a website, and what they do is at the end of every month, they compile all of the grading data for the big four. So we got CGC, we got BGS, we got SGC, we got PSA, and they put it into this awesome report for us to talk about and analyze. And you know, the power in this is these are actual results, right? Like a lot of times we're talking about thinking and feeling and hoping and praying, and there is no ambiguity here. These are the actual results from these four grading companies, which are macro level trends in the Pokemon space. And I'm going to tell you right now, if anybody else in the Pokemon space on YouTube is talking about it, I haven't found them yet, which is absolutely crazy to me. In the sports card space, as soon as this comes out, as soon as the website publishes this, I'm telling you, there's a flood of videos all over YouTube because this is incredibly important information about macro trends in the market. Yes, it's looking in a rearview mirror, but at the end of the day, as we start to add more and more of these, right now we have a December grading report. Now this is a January grading report on this channel. Like we're going to start to see trends, and we're always talking about playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers. We're always talking about adding tools to our tool belt. I promise you, this is a super important tool for us to have in this channel in our tool belt. So if you have not subscribed yet and you are watching this, we would love to have you as a member of this channel. We're always doing cool stuff like this. We're trying to approach it a little bit differently, and we're having a ton of fun along the way. So hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, drop a comment down below. It's just an amazing group of individuals that we've put together here, and we'd love to have you as a part of the team. So with that being said, let's get into it. Now, a lot of the slides are going to be focused on PSA, and it's not because, you know, I'm a PSA homer, which I am. I've been collecting PSA graded cards for 20 years. I have a huge PSA graded collection, but it's really because look at the items graded by month. PSA, there's PSA, and really, I mean, everybody else is not even fighting for second place. Like they're just scraping the bottom of the barrel. Now, I don't think that's good. I would love to see one of these other graders make a big push. I don't think it's great when you have a monopoly like PSA does in the grading market. I want somebody else to come in and challenge them. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't care who it is, but I want somebody else to make a move. The other thing that I'm noticing here is look at PSA. You know, I've been looking at these reports month over month, year, you know, for as long as they've been coming out. I won't say year after year because it hasn't been coming out that long, but I always look at them when they come out. And this is the first time I'm starting to get that feeling that PSA is starting to flatten out a little bit, right? Like you see in August, it dipped down a little bit, did a big jump in September. And just remember, a lot of these jumps and waggles can be caused by different price fluctuations. PSA knows that, hey, when demand drops, we're going to lower the price. So they have levers that they pull, and we're going to talk about that later on. But even though that, you know, if you look since really July of 2022 to January 2023, they graded the same number of cards. So despite pulling those levers, you know, they're still flat. So I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I still think PSA is super strong. I still think grading in the hobby is really the way to go, but between you and me. But it's just interesting to see that trend, which is why we look at this data, right? We're looking for trends. So here I wanted to break out the other four groups just to see where they stand. And CSG is a sports grading one, so we're not going to talk about that. And really, they're the partners of CGC. CGC Trading Cards is really all that matters for that organization, and we're going to talk about it. But Beckett, I love Beckett. So I have such fond memories of a child of waking up and running to the mailbox and checking every day to see if my brand new Beckett magazine came in the mail, because back then we didn't have the internet. Yeah, I'm aging myself a little bit, but we didn't have the internet. So if I wanted to know the value of my cards, I was reliant on the Beckett magazine to come in the mail, and it would have the cards and the sets and the prices and a little black arrow up or a little clear or a little empty arrow down saying the price went up or down. And so nostalgic for me. I just love it. So I'm always cheering for Beckett to do better, but they have been a dumpster fire in regards to grading recently. I'm not saying that I don't believe in their grades. I'm not saying that I don't hope they do well. I'm not saying that, you know, you guys should discount the value of Beckett graded cards. I'm just saying compared to the other brands, they have had a world of hurt. You're going to see a gap right there where they actually stopped grading for a little while. So yay for Beckett. Happy to see them make a little uptick. SGC, look at that trend line. I think SGC is going to be a player. I think they're making a move in the Pokemon space. Again, we're going to talk about that later on, but they are not somebody to sleep on. And I was really interested to see the CGC big jumps in trends. You'll see that it looks like in August of 2022 and October 2022, they were up to 100,000 cards graded. Then they dropped all the way down in September to like 60,000, it looks like. And then, you know, they're just all over the place. So again, a lot of this is driven by different prices and different specials that companies go with, but it's interesting to see these huge, just wild swings in grading. So then we're going to get into this, and this is when things start to get interesting. This is when we start to dial in. So this is PSA, SGC, Beckett, and we'll call it CGC grading. And these are all the different genres, if you will, right? So you have TCG, which is traded card games, and that includes Magic, Pokemon. All of them are lumped into one. Now, I will say that, but I also want you to know that as we get further into this presentation, you're going to see that Pokemon is really the only one that matters. There's Pokemon, then there's everybody else, just like there's PSA, then everybody else in grading. Really, nobody else is a blip on the radar when it comes to volume in the TCG space. You see baseball, basketball, football. I call them the ball sports. You see that if you add those three together, they still are bigger than the TCG space. Not a huge surprise to me. But individually, none of them are bigger than the TCG space. Now, TCG did come down 17% in January at PSA. Well, why is that, right? In December, we had a grading card special that was going on. In January, the grading card special went away. So by no surprise, the numbers came down, but guess what? We're staring down the barrel of another grading card special here for TCG. So we'll get into that in a minute, but again, when you see these changes, you have to understand what is influencing these changes. When everything remains the same and we see fluctuations, that's when we can start to understand, hey, the market is doing one thing or the other, but when you have grading specials going away and grading specials coming back, we just need more data to understand what's going on, but 355,000 cards is incredibly, incredibly strong for the TCG space. And in the next slide, we're going to see why. So look at this. This is, again, TCG cards graded at PSA. This is January 2022 all the way to January 2023. There was a 50% increase year over year in TCG cards graded. And remember, that includes the grading special going away in January. We expected December to January to drop, but even with their no grading special in the month of January, they still graded 355,000 TCG cards as compared to 213,000 in January of 2022. You can't tell me the hobby isn't growing. You can't tell me there isn't excitement around the TCG space. It's going to be interesting to see how Q1 trends compared to Q1 of 2022. You'll see that it was up, up, up. I have no doubt it's going to be up in February because we have a grading card special coming. So, it just speaks to the strength of the hobby. It speaks to the strength of TCG. It speaks to the strength of graded cards to see these numbers increasing year over year. And as we continue to look at this month over month, it's going to be awesome to see how this grows and pans out for us. Now, this is a slide that I find really interesting because there always seems to be these crazy hot debates as, well, Beckett gives away gems or PSA gives away gems or CGC does nothing but give away gem. Listen, we're going to look at the data here, and the thing that I hear in some of the groups that I'm in is like PSA is the easiest grader. But if you look at the ultra modern, and as we look at the next couple slides, you'll see that the majority of cards coming through are ultra modern. When you look at ultra modern, really CGC is the one that gives away the most 9.5s in their space. This doesn't include the 10 perfects in CGC or the 10 pristines in Beckett. So if you have an ultra modern card and you submit it to CGC, 60.2% of the time it's coming back as a gem mint. Beckett, it's coming back right at 60%, and PSA is only at 53.3%. So take that as you will. Then you go into the 2010s, you see that Beckett and PSA are pretty much hand in hand there. CGC drops down significantly, down to 25.6%. I don't know enough. That's interesting to me. I'll have to do some more research on that. But then you get into the 2000s and everybody starts to level off right there at 20%. But the biggest jump to me was when I looked at the 2020s and you see Beckett and you see CGC. Those are meaningful increases. Those are meaningful higher percentages when it comes to getting a gem rate versus PSA. Now, just to be clear, this includes everything, right? This includes basketball, baseball, football, Pokemon, everything, Magic. This is everything lumped into one, but those are macro level trends at these different grading companies. And again, I want you all to grade with who you think is awesome, who you think is the best. Like, I do think that Beckett and PSA command the highest value on the secondary market. I think PSA specifically, especially when you're looking at, big time investors, as you've seen, PSA is just way far and away. So that's where my heart is, and that's where I'm investing my money is in PSA slabs. But invest in who you love. Like, I give you this information simply to help you out, but invest with who you love, invest with the slabs you love, because at the end of the day, this is an awesome hobby, so it doesn't really matter. So here, this is super cool stuff too. So this is the most graded sets for the month of January at PSA in the TCG space. 1999 Pokemon game has been cemented at the top for the last 3 months. They have graded 327,000 1999 Pokemon cards. Now that includes Shadowless, that includes First Edition, that includes Base Set 2. All that is lumped into the 1999 Pokemon game. So in reality, there's several sets that are lumped in there, and I thought that's really important to call out, but still 627,000. Tell me there isn't a ton of interest in that. That boggles my mind. The 2022 Black Star promo has been in second place 2 months in a row. That, I think, is driven by the Charizard UPCs, which really saw a ton of things getting graded in December. December was when it really started to shoot up. Man, that word was hard. And then, you know, new to the list, we've got the Japanese V-Star Universe. I love seeing a couple Japanese sets up here. I think that's amazing that it's getting a ton of love here in the US. So there's 2 Japanese sets up there. V-Star Universe, no surprise to see that jump up there, as that was one of the newer ones. What did surprise me was Hidden Fates. Look at Hidden Fates making the list. They weren't up there last month. Where does Hidden Fates come from? But cool to see them jump up there. Same thing with that 2019 Japanese Sword and Shield VMAX Climax. Like, where do these come from? I don't understand. I have to do some research into it and see what cards are really driving that. Again, this is macro level information, which can give us some idea of what's going on in the market, but I thought it was really cool to see that. Also, Evolving Skies and Celebrations continue to be some of the most graded sets out there. I think that is absolutely amazing. It speaks to the long-term collectability of both of these sets. I think it really speaks to the long-term collectability of Celebrations. I had an incredibly intelligent question, as always, by one of you guys the other day, and you were asking which one is a better long-term investment, Evolving Skies or Celebrations, and I spent like hours trying to figure out where I would put my money. And the reality is, I think they're both going to be great long-term investments. I think 10 years down the road, Celebrations will probably outperform. I think 5 years down the road, I think Evolving Skies will, especially if there's not, I hate to say the word reprint, I feel like we shouldn't even be talking about that, but especially if there's not, I think over the next couple of years, you know, Evolving Skies is going to pop off. Even if there is some, I still think it's going to pop off. But no bad choice between Evolving Skies and Celebrations. Interestingly, Pokemon Go dropped off the list. That didn't really surprise me so much. 2021 Black Star promos dropped off the list, and the 2021 Japanese V-Star Climax dropped off the list. Again, when you see that these growth versus December is down, remember PSA TCG grading as a whole was down this month, so not a big surprise to see some of these red numbers here. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because this is almost a given every single month, but this is the most graded subjects for the month of January. Charizard, Pikachu, Mew, Umbreon Blast. These are the same ones. Every single month, they're always the same. No surprise here. What was cool to me was to see Charmander jump up there with his big brother. Like, he was the new one to the list. 11 of these 12 are all Pokemon cards. Remember, I said TCG includes everything, but it's awesome to see that these cards are you know, really commanding all of the grading attention right now. High grading, high demand, high collectability. Like, when you're thinking about what cards are going to hold the most value, the cards that are getting graded the most are almost always the ones that have the most value. Here was an interesting slide, and I have this theory, and it could be my wild conspiracy theory. Last month it was supported by this slide. This month, I wouldn't say it's debunked by any means, but the support for it isn't as strong as it was last month. So you all have heard me talk about this a lot, that I believe it's a race to get to PSA. The people who get their cards to PSA first have a higher opportunity of getting a gem rate, because in my little crazy mind, I feel like, hey, they want PSA 10s to come out relatively early, because PSA 10s early are going to drive high value for the cards. People are going to spend a ton of money. People are going to see that. They're going to want to get more cards graded. So that's going to generate more grading demand from PSA. But then over time, they don't want all of them to be PSA 10s, right? Because if the market has nothing but PSA 10s, then there's no value in a PSA 10. So they want to get 10s out early, and then they kind of want to taper off as time goes on. Last month when I looked at this, okay, the December gem rate versus the November gem rate, the December gem rate for the top 10 was down universally, all the way down the column. So let's go over what these different columns are left to right, and then I'll explain more about what I mean. So far left column is the all-time number of cards that were graded in the thousands. The second column is the number of cards that were graded in January 23 in the thousands. Then you have your growth versus December. So did the number of cards graded in January versus December go up? You'll see a lot of black and some red in there as well. And then you have the January gem rate. Okay, so the number of cards that were submitted in January of 2023 that got a Gem Mint 10 rating. Then the gem rate in December, and then the all-time gem rate. So you have the gem rate for December, gem rate for January, the all-time gem rate, just for all the cards that have been submitted of all time. So the first column, you'll see that really all of the submissions came in January of 2023, so there's nothing to really compare it against. Then we'll go to the next line, 2022. These are the full art Charizard cards in the UPC that I've been talking about a ton. You'll see January 23 gem rates, top to bottom, 29, 39, 30. December was 30, 40, and 28. So the gem rate from January to December dropped a little bit for two of them, but went up a little bit for one of them. Fascinating. But what is interesting is the all-time gem rate. January is lower in the all-time gen rate. So we have 31 versus 21, 41 versus 39, 31 versus 30. So when the all-time gem rate is higher, that substantiates a little bit my thought that it might be, hey, let's get there early, let's try and have it. Again, I don't know. This could just be I will say this though, the first 10s to market always command a higher value, so there's certainly no harm in getting them there early to begin with. And I will say top to bottom, if you look at the January 2023 gem rate versus the all-time gem rate, it is no worse than flat. It is either down or flat. So we have 29 versus 31, 39 versus 41, 30 versus 31, 20 versus 20 is our first flat, 57, 57 is flat. Then we get back to the downward trend, 57 versus 60, 65, 67, 66, 67, 55, 31. So again, really interesting for me to see, hey, all-time gem rate versus January gem rate, it's either flat or down, so at least I think, hey, maybe there is something to this getting to PSA early. I love that Celebrations has a couple cards here on this list, and it's just interesting to see the cards that are being graded the most and their gem rate. I think it's really relevant information. It gives us some ideas to what are out there and what we can expect as long as we're sending in really quality cards. And I also love that 11 of these 12 are all Pokemon cards. Super cool stuff. So I was talking about how I want a new player to emerge. I want somebody to go toe-to-toe with PSA. Doesn't mean I'm ever going to change from PSA, but I do think all markets are better from competition. And I love what SGC is doing this month, so I wanted to call this out. I will tell you, I'm not sending any of my cards to SGC. I'm still sending them to PSA, but I love the fact they're doing a $15 grading special. Look at the turnaround time, 5 to 10 day turnaround time. There is something to be said for getting your cards back in a week or 2 weeks versus having them go away for a month to 2 months at PSA, because the market is going to not correct, but the market typically drops a little bit as more cards are graded and more cards come out and the market becomes more flush with them. I love that there's no membership required. I love that there's no declared value limits. You can send $1 million cards to them and they don't care. No minimum or maximum order size. You can send 5, 10, 20 cards, whatever, doesn't matter. I think this is an amazing special, and I think this just goes to show how serious SGC is about getting into the TCG space. I want to call out, they have graded the most valuable piece of sports memorabilia of all time, period. End of discussion. About 6 months ago, they sold a Mickey Mantle 1952 Topps in an SGC 9.5 slab, sold for $12.6 million. $12.6 million for a piece of cardboard. Most expensive piece of memorabilia ever. Not more expensive than bats or balls or gloves or signed jerseys or anything. $12.6 million. Absolutely crazy. This was at a time where a lot of people were saying, hey, the card market, trading cards, sports cards, everything was on a bit of a decline after the all-time high from the pandemic. But look, ultra valuable, ultra rare cards are always going to command a premium. You hear me talk about this all the time. Buy the most valuable, rarest cards that you can reasonably afford, because they're going to hold long-term value more than anything else. Promise you, period. End of discussion. It's been proven over 20 years of me doing this. I also want to call out SGC has a really tough grading reputation. They're also known to be really, really good. Their black labels are super cool. So anyways, look at their growth in TCG too. You see that they're up 38%. Now, they only graded 2,400 cards, so I mean a growth of 38% isn't a ton, but just goes to show they're trying to get in the TCG market, and I like it. I support you. Way to go, SGC. Love it. So, hey, listen, there's a $15 special back in place, so we know the subs are going to pop. I wanted to call out, hey, listen, PSA's output is back on track after a long, long, long time of backlogs and people just praying that the cards were going to come back. It seems like PSA has got, their throughput back where it needs to be. Obviously, I think delays are going to happen. Not delays, but they'll probably get back into normal turnaround times now that they're doing the special. A bunch of people are going to submit. As I talked about earlier, they pull these pricing levers. It's all a push and pull based on demand. And PSA wants to grade 1.25 million cards per month. Their CEO has come out and said that that's his goal, 1.25 million a month. They graded right around 1 million cards last month, so they're below where their goal is. So obviously they're going to offer pricing specials to get that number up. They have staff to do 1.25 million, so they want to make sure that they're actually doing that because they have people on staff to do it. I always say this, don't wait on a grading special to submit a big card. If you have a big card, get it in the slab, get it done, be one of the first ones to get to PSA, even if it's for a personal collection, just get it protected. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you want to sell it, at least you'll be first to market. If you're waiting to save $5 on a grading card submission special, that time probably isn't well spent. So I advise you just to get it there early. And again, we look at these grading reports because strong grading reports are a great indication of a strong overall market. And I'm really excited that we talk about this in this space. And I think there's a ton of value here. And I cannot wait to share with you guys the February 1 morning when it comes out. All right, everybody, if you didn't hear it, if you made it all the way to the end, I'm making this announcement at the end. Listen, we're at 400 subscribers now, which I'm absolutely humbled by. I'm just amazed by the awesomeness of this group every single day. And at 500 subscribers, I'm going to do a giveaway because I want to and I can. And we're going to do a Crown Zenith Elite Trainer Box giveaway. You guys know that I bought a case. I have 10 of them sitting in my closet. And I couldn't think of a cooler thing to do than to give them away to some of you out there. So I appreciate you. You guys have an awesome one, and we'll be talking soon. Thanks. Bye.